Hi guys, so anyone who watches my videos knows that I really love video games. I mean, most of the posters on my wall about video games, I have the huge Street Fighter poster right behind me. But I realized that I hardly show you guys the video games I buy. I hardly do like, hey, I bought this and it's really cool kind of video. Recently I bought Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and this game has gotten me thinking about all the fighting games I've had. So what I did was I went into my closet and I started just taking out fighting games just to see what I had. Now that they're all out, I want to show you guys the awesome fighting games I've collected over the years. So let's go way back to the times of Sega Genesis. Way back in the day when the Sega Genesis was out, I really didn't have a Super Nintendo until after the PlayStation came out. So I was late to the Super Nintendo thing. I was more of a Genesis kid, but I really loved Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat was one of those games that was controversial when it first came out. You see, it has the MA13, like you're not supposed to buy this game. It's for mature kids, MA, that's what that's supposed to mean. This was one of the games I loved to play. And when the sequel came out, I had to get that too. Mortal Kombat 2 had more characters, all the characters I loved from the first game plus more. Now, when the third game came out, there were two versions. There was the regular version and the ultimate version. I have here Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. You can see it's a pre-owned copy. I didn't buy it for $10, so it was given to me. And this has way more characters than the other two. So I have all three. Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 here for the Sega Genesis. Now, along with the Mortal Kombat games for the Sega Genesis, we had the Street Fighter series that was running alongside it. And Street Fighter was awesome because the characters, Ryu, Chun-Li, they were just so memorable. The game that really took the lead in the fighting game, both in arcades and on home consoles, was Street Fighter 2. I have here Street Fighter 2, the Championship Edition. After the success of Street Fighter 2, they kept remaking it. There was Street Fighter 2, then there's the Championship Edition, which I have. There was Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and then there was Super Street Fighter 2. Super Street Fighter 2 was very cool because it had new characters such as Cammy, T-Hawk, GJ, and Fei Long. There was another video game company making fighting video games at the time of the Sega Genesis. It was called SNK, and SNK mainly made video games for the Neo Geo system. Many of the Neo Geo games are SNK games, but some of them were released on other consoles. Fatal Fury 2 is one of the fighting games that was released for the Sega Genesis, and so was Samurai Showdown. That'll be a cool transition to show you this. This is a game made by SNK for the Sega Saturn. It's a Japanese game. It's Samurai Showdown Spirits. And what it is a compilation of 2 or 3 different Samurai Showdown games. One of the big games for the Sega Saturn was Virtua Fighter 2. This was the first time that a 3D polygonal game actually became very, very popular. They also had Virtua Fighter 1 for the 32X on the Sega Genesis, but that wasn't as popular as Virtua Fighter 2. Virtua Fighter 2 actually became so popular that they made a different version with the same characters that look like kids. They called it Virtua Fighter Kids. Another polygonal game that was kind of popular during the time of Sega Saturn was the Fighting Vipers. They didn't release a lot of Fighting Vipers games. It's a franchise that soon died. But one cool thing came out of the Fighting Vipers and Virtua Fighter franchises, and that was Fighters Mega Mix. It was both Fighting Vipers and Virtua Fighter versus each other. Back for the Sega Genesis, I talked a bit about Mortal Kombat, and there were some Mortal Kombat games for the Sega Saturn, but Battle Monsters was a game made by Acclaim that actually looked a lot like Mortal Kombat, but had monsters in them, and they were pretty cool. I mean, the graphics were very much like Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter also made its way into the Sega Saturn with games like Street Fighter Alpha. So I have this Street Fighter Alpha for the Sega Saturn, the American version, and I have Street Fighter 02, which is really Street Fighter Alpha 2 for the Japanese system. Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat were sort of in this feud at the time of the Sega Saturn to see who, could pick up more fans and who could be the most popular game. And at the time, Street Fighter had released the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme called Street Fighter The Movie. Actually, the title had The Movie in the movie. It was really weird. But they also released a game called Street Fighter The Movie. And I have it here, Street Fighter the movie, the game, and it actually looks a lot like Mortal Kombat. What they did was they used the actual actors in the movie and they used those images in the game to make it look like real people were fighting. Capcom released a groundbreaking game called X-Men: Children of the Atom, And X-Men Children of the Atom is very cool because it started the Versus franchise. So after X-Men Children of the Atom, they also released a game called Marvel Superheroes. And from those two games, they started pushing all these different combinations together. So they had games like X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. I have that one here in Japanese. One more awesome fighting game for the Sega Saturn before I go is Darkstalkers, also known as Vampire Savior. I have this one here in Japanese, and it was also used in the Marvel vs. Capcom games. I'm going to start moving on to the PlayStation because I don't have a lot of time, and there's a lot of games I have that I want to get through. I already spoke about Street Fighter Alpha 1 and Street Fighter Alpha 2. I have Street Fighter Alpha 3. The Tekken series came out during the PlayStation era, and I don't have Tekken 1 or Tekken 2, but I do have Tekken 3 here. It's a very enjoyable game, and it's one of the series that still lives very strong today. I was talking about polygonal fighting games earlier with Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers and Fighters Megamix. Street Fighter also tried their hand at a polygonal fighting game, and it didn't work. The series was called Street Fighter EX, and I have here Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha. It's just an upgrade to the original EX game, and as you can see here, it's like a 3D version of Ryu on the cover. I don't have Street Fighter EX2 on hand, but I do have Street Fighter EX3 for the PlayStation 2. It's one of the first games that came out for the PlayStation 2. One of the crossover games that did come out was Capcom vs. SNK. Probably the most famous games in the Versus series will be the Marvel vs. Capcom games. Marvel vs. Capcom 1 I have here for the PlayStation 1. I have Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for the Sega Dreamcast, and I recently just got Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. This one has 50 characters. Jesus! We were talking about Tekken a bit earlier. I have Tekken 4 here for the PlayStation 2 and Tekken 5. There's actually a tag team game available for it called Tekken Tag Tournament. I have here Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. Virtua Fighter 4 was a cool game on its own, but Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution was pretty cool because you could customize where your characters looked. Another game series that's very popular for fighting games is Dead or Alive, and mostly they're popular for the girls with the big boobs. SNK, who released the Fatal Fury and the King of Fighters series, still go strong today. I have here King of Fighters 2006, another great franchise. Just all the King of Fighters games. They release a new one every year, and they actually have compilations now of King of Fighters games from back in the day. Arcana Heart, if you like anime, it's full of anime girls fighting each other. I mean, who doesn't like that? It's just a few more games I want to show you before I go. Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. Capcom tried their own hand also at a crossover game, and they called it Capcom Fighting Evolution. It actually didn't work out that well. This game is really bad. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I have like 5 or 6 more games that I could think of that are somewhere, just fighting games somewhere that I could show you, but this video is already long enough, so I'm just going to leave it there. And I hope you have an idea of how massive my video game collection and how many systems it covers. Just wanted to show you guys something that I really like and appreciate, and even though you guys might not like it as much as I do, maybe you can appreciate my appreciation of these games, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go because if I keep on talking, there's not going to be any time left for anything on this video.